Later this month, Frank de Winne, a Belgian astronaut from the European Space Agency, will begin a 6-month stay on board the International Space Station. Named the OasISS mission, this will be ESA's second long-term flight to the ISS, since construction in orbit began almost 11 years ago. The ISS is now almost complete. The addition of 2 new solar arrays in March this year, combined with additional life support and environmental control systems, mean that 6 astronauts can now live and work on board. The OasISS mission will be especially significant for Europe's role on the ISS. After an initial period as flight engineer, Frank de Winne will become the first European ISS commander. This is Frank's second flight to the station, and he'll be undertaking a huge responsibility, in charge of operations, equipment, and the management of a 6-strong crew.
The biggest responsibilities you have as a commander is first of all building the crew here already on the ground, and then of course also on orbit, making sure that you have a good spirit within the team. I will be working with 5 people which are very highly trained, which know what they need to do, which know their tasks extremely well. So my biggest job is basically to keep a good spirit, between the in-flight team, the on-orbit team in the ISS and the ground team, and to make sure that we can accomplish all the objectives that have been set out for us.
Frank de Winne will be launched from Baikonur in Kazakhstan and will fly to the ISS inside a Russian Soyuz vehicle along with 2 crewmates, Canadian Space Agency astronaut Robert Thirsk and the Russian cosmonaut Roman Romanenko. Having joined the current 3-man crew in orbit, the astronauts will begin the task that they've spent months training for. One of Frank's roles will be to operate the station's main robotic arm, which he'll use to attach a Japanese cargo spacecraft called the HTV when it arrives in the autumn. He'll also operate another robotic arm, this time attached to Kibo, the Japanese experimental module. With this, Frank will transfer experimental hardware from inside the HTV to docking points on the outside of Kibo. Another member of ESA's European Astronaut Corps is scheduled to fly to the ISS during the OasISS mission. In August, the Swedish astronaut Christer Fuglesang will arrive on board the space shuttle. During his 11-day mission, he'll venture outside the space station to prepare it for the arrival of Node 3, the last European-built module, which will arrive in 2010. A larger-than-ever crew on board the International Space Station will allow more time to be spent on Europe's science program in orbit. Throughout the OasISS mission, Frank will be carrying out a large number of experiments and demonstrations designed for a long-term mission in microgravity. The findings of this research will greatly enhance Europe's future missions into space, as well as having numerous applications back on Earth.
In some of our scientific modules that we have on board of the International Space Station, in our labs like the Columbus lab or like the Kibo lab, we have a lot of capabilities to do science, both in fluid science, material science, biology, and we're going to have a full complement of international scientific experiments in all of these disciplines that should help us better understand how certain things work here on Earth, but that can also help us in exploring further the solar system.
The main focus for European science on board the International Space Station is ESA's Columbus laboratory, which was attached in February of last year. A large number of experiments can be accommodated both inside and outside this module, which has already greatly enhanced the role that Europe plays in space. The Columbus laboratory is linked to Earth via a control center in Germany, which is in turn linked to user support centers throughout Europe. This puts scientists in direct contact with the experiments that are being carried out in orbit. Overall, the OasISS mission will be a huge step forward for the European space program. It'll give ESA more responsibility on board the International Space Station than ever before, and allow it to take full advantage of its new science capabilities in orbit. When Frank de Winne returns to Earth in November, he'll bring a wealth of experience of life in orbit with him. Experience that'll be vital to Europe during its future missions to the ISS, the Moon, and beyond.